Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Global warming gets twice as much taxpayer dollars as border security. Let me repeat that. Global warming gets twice as much taxpayer dollars as border security. Food stamp enrollment doubles to 47 million over the past decade, and another Democrat success story is Detroit is set to cap pensions by 84%. Maury, we talk about the Obamacare crony capitalism, where friends of Michelle's from college get the no big contracts, $600 million to build a website. That's ridiculous. Amazon probably could have done it for $10 million. Google could have done it. Apple could have done it. It's just another example of the taxpayers being looted for political gain, like we almost talked about at the top of the show. We also have millions of Americans on food stamps, 47 million, more on disability every day, more on unemployment every day. And we just saw from the government shutdown what happens when you shut down a national park or when you take a balloon ride away. What's going to happen when you pull the plug on food stamps?
Well, first of all, they're not going to pull the plug on food stamps. They're going to have more food stamps.
Or if there's a government shutdown and they can blame the Republicans and they can stop the payments for a week.
The partial shutdown was blamed 100% on the Republican Party. I was ashamed of the Republican Party, how stupidly that whole thing was handled. It was actually, they were lured into it and they fell for it like a ton of bricks. They thought that somehow by threatening this partial shutdown that they would get the blame, and the Republicans got the blame. And I'm telling you, it's like you're saying, checkers against chess. So there's not going to be a cutback in food stamps. There's going to be more food stamps.
But my point is that when you set up so many people, it's very easy to pull the plug and ignite a very furor amongst those people. When the government controls what they eat, what they drink, what they see, what they hear, their phones, it's very easy to cause a crisis.
I guess where we have a misunderstanding here is you're saying when it won't happen because as long as Barack is in the White House and God forbid is followed by Hillary.
It might be. I've already seen ready for Hillary stickers.
Oh, I know that. If you have that, you have a ready-made populace today that is going to work to perpetuate, whether it's food stamps, or whether it's debit cards, whether it's some other lure to make them feel that the Republicans are a bunch of rich country club people. They have the propaganda. You know, propaganda is something I live with all my life. I studied it, I've worked on it. When I was in the Army, I was part of the Psychological Warfare Division. I was actually a manager of one group of it because I enjoy this idea of communication. And by the way, propaganda doesn't necessarily have to be bad. It comes from the Greek word propagos, to propagate, but it usually is used to lure people and to make them think that what you stand for is going to work. You know, Paul Joseph Goebbels, one of the greatest criminals in history, was also one of the greatest propagandists in all history. The Apostle Paul. There would not have been a massive worldwide Christianity if it weren't for a Jew by the name of Saul who changed his name to Paul. And he was a great propagandist. So the point is what we've got right now, you're going to have propaganda, and what I've seen so far, the Republicans have been losers at every step of the game. You're saying it's because they're not working together.
No. No, part of it is that they have no representation in the media, zero.
Well, but the part of that is also that they are showing no leverage. They're not playing the game. You know, the old story about they're bringing a knife to a gunfight. It's like going back to Romney in his debate, his October 3rd debate, which could have absolutely savaged Obama. He was a Mr. Nice Guy. He says, now, you don't mind if I call your health program Obamacare, do you? I couldn't believe it. He was asking his permission if it was okay for him to do that. He was a weakling. And when you're fighting a thug who will do anything to come down on his opposition, you better be ready to fight the game his way.
Speaking of propaganda, the fact that Jon Stewart of The Daily Show, which is where a lot of people get their news from,
No question
unfortunately,
about
it's a
it.
comedy show, and
But he's
Saturday
also
Night
very
Live,
intelligent.
which has been very, very liberal
Always has
friendly,
been.
come down on the administration and their website and the Obamacare. Does that signal a shift finally of people? Not that you wanted them to do that, but that they're finally, they can't ignore the utter incompetence. It's so blazing that they can't ignore it anymore.
Here's my explanation. My explanation is Saturday Night Live, the various media, the various programs that you mentioned, they have to live a long time. Once Mr. Obama finishes his term and whoever comes behind him, they are smelling a situation that is going the other way. They're seeing what's happening foreign policy-wise, they're seeing what's happening domestically, and they realize that they're beginning to look like a bunch of fools because they're supporting a president who is being ridiculed not only here in the United States, not very effectively, but even more so overseas. People that have been overseas in the last couple of months come back to me and talking to me and say, my God, how can you abide a president who doesn't seem to know what he's doing?
But why would they flip now? I mean, we've had Fast and Furious, Benghazi, the stimulus, Obama. There's been so many things.
Yeah, but those.
Why now?
Why now? Because what you're getting now is, but on the foreign policy side, when a country like Saudi Arabia, who was practically made by this country, Franklin Delano Roosevelt recognized Saudi Arabia. We've been playing footsie with them because of the oil and their basic, the basic influence they have over the Sunnis, which are the majority of the Arab population or the Muslim population all over the world. When you have that situation develop overseas, and now you're seeing the Obamacare is the first really big turnaround that is beginning to affect those people who were blindly following everything that Obama's doing. And you can't get away with covering that up because the way it was rolled out was so amateurish and was so...
and because it hits them right in the pocket?
Well, not only that, though. They never thought that companies, especially independent companies, would cancel their insurance and put hundreds of thousands of people out there without having any insurance. And suddenly the young people who thought, well, it doesn't apply to us, it does apply to them. And they're beginning, there's a lot of people now finding themselves without any insurance, and they're getting scared. And this is playing itself back into the communications media.
And you know what really astounds me is to hear people like Dr. Krauthammer and George Will come out and say that they were boondoggled by this guy during the first term as well. I find that amazing that they could possibly say something like that they were actually bought into this before the campaign.
You brought that up.
2008.
I think you make a very, very valid point, especially a guy like Krauthammer, who is a real pragmatist. But remember, he worked for Walter Mondale when he was running against Reagan. Although Reagan himself was a 4-time voter for Franklin Delano Roosevelt when he was president of the Theater Guild.
But if you listen to Reagan's speeches, there's from '64 when he started campaigning for Goldwater on, I mean, there's no question where this guy stands.
Right, but the point you're making about Krauthammer and George Will.
It's stunning to me.
George Will was never a really hard-fisted kind of guy. He comes from Urbana-Champaign, where I went to college. I knew George Will, very highly intelligent, very articulate guy. I'm surprised that he's now a political observer for Fox. I don't know what took him so long. Krauthammer is probably the smartest guy out there today, but the point is he is also an honest person. He will admit that he was taken in and thought that maybe the idea of a minority person who's very well-spoken, who seemed to have a very unique background. Maybe that kind of a change coming after George Bush might be.
So then that means you have to ignore Bill Ayers, Reverend Wright,
Yes.
the background,
Yes.
the community organizing,
Yes.
Saul Alinsky.
Yes.
How do you not, I mean, how is this possible? And now that I know that, I can see why we have such an insurmountable mountain to try and climb over.
Well,
I really do.
I think you just answered your own question very, very well. They probably felt, well, this guy is charismatic. Charisma is a big word.
And so was the guy that you were a fan of in your early youth.
Chenoweth, we will not name any names, right? Well, of course.
Go back to your youth.
He was a fantastically charismatic individual. The man was totally insane.
Wasn't he a community organizer too?
No, he was. I've read every book ever written about this guy, and I still can't come up with what his attitude toward the Jews were. You would think he was born an anti-Semite. Do you know that Adolf Hitler's the doctor that saved his mother's life for another 2 years, and that he got out of Austria when the German army went into Austria? They were going to send him to a Mauthausen, a Nazi death camp in Austria. He got him out of there, sold all his stuff for him, and he wound up at the University of Chicago. There's things there that still have not been answered about the incredible
Motivation.
the evil of this man. If you are a believer, which I know you're not, and I'm not really one either, of the occult, you would think this guy came straight from hell. Really, and that's the way he operated. He was the arch murderer of all time.